I want to come on to looking at the skills that organizations have and where those pockets of skills can be both internally and externally. And you mentioned really about the kind of appeal to, you used it in the context of employees and contingent workers. It also applies to service providers. So there's a limited, particularly when you're in areas of scarce skills. We can come on to the kind of employer value proposition and how that fits into it all. But yeah, you summed it up quite well there. And I'm totally in the same camp as you in the sense that I think companies need to embrace these different options. I would say it's horses for courses. You know, you look at the work, if you've got the options lined up effectively, if you've got clear channels to each option and you can manage it, which is where digital transformation and technology again comes in and is very important in that process, then you can achieve that objective of understanding what is the most effective use of all of your resources, which probably a little bit comes back to some of the stuff you've done in the military as well, where you need to get the job done. You need to understand what your resources are, which are the best tools to use for each job, and to be able to achieve your objective. It also comes back to the core things around strategy, leadership, and the communication of strategy, whether that's to an internal employee base, external contingent workers, or an external supply base who are effectively part of your extended workforce. If you haven't got a clear company strategy and you can't communicate that out to your workforce, you're not going to get the results you want. And especially when you're starting to deal in outcomes. So outcomes have become very popular. It's something that's really, really growing, but it needs to be done right. And organizations need to have strategic approach because it forces them to think about, what do I actually need to get done? Okay, what does the business need to achieve? And what am I doing? And how does that work towards that overall goal? So yeah, I think there's some really, really interesting points there for us to cover off. Just going back to what you were saying about understanding the available skills within an organization. I know you guys touched on this when you talked about skills audits in your white paper. So can you just give me a little bit of your kind of opinion on that, and also maybe a little bit of a window into what happens when you guys do that sort of thing in practice in terms of skills audit? Where do you get the information from? How does that sort of thing start?
Well, yeah, I mean, so skills is like one of those hot topics. And you kind of, when we attend a lot of events, as both of us do, diversity and inclusion is always a hot topic. Skills is always a hot topic. You've got all of these stats telling you that 90% of the UK workforce needs to be upskilled by 2030. It's going to cost the UK economy X amount of £1 billion if it's not done. And you've got companies like the Bright Network have just launched their like school leaver and graduate training programs, to upskill people in necessary tech things. So there's quite a lot of focus really on upskilling those. And actually, where this came to light was we're looking at a client that, there's an area of their business where there's automation and there's, ideally like a real estate closure happening now. So it's like, we've got all these employees and they're really good people and they really fit with the culture of the business, but we don't need them in that guise anymore. We don't need them in that role anymore. But we've got a boatload of tech vacancies over here. And it's, how do we see which one of these people has the potential to be upskilled into these new roles? And it got into the conversation of, one, you've got to have, you're looking at a communications program and an employee comms program, because you've got to engage with the people, because part of the skills audit is getting the people to the point of doing it so people can record their own skills, but also to push people through an assessment program where you can start tracking, like, what is their ability to learn tech skills? What is their personality tell you about where they're best placed? So they might not be the best person to go and suddenly become a cloud engineer or do full stack development, but they might be the right person that could sit within your project management team because they have the right analytical capability or potential to be trained on that and can help you deliver some of these products versus being one of the tech people. So but understanding, like, having there's some companies who are really far ahead with this, and they have, their Workday talent marketplace set up really well, and they've got these learning pathways and people can go and hold their skills and engage with it. And you've got companies who are, well far behind that. And I'd say the companies who are significantly far behind that are actually in the majority, because there's very few people have this stuff absolutely nailed down. But by starting to understand what is in your business and what do the profile of those people look like, and creating that data set then allows you to look at what your future skills jobs are. And I'll stay with just jobs rather than workers there. and understand what the core skills required or the foundations really for some of those are, and then go, right, well, if I take X person, add Y training, I get Z, and it's going to become much more common in terms of the speed at which skills are changing, the speed at which job requirements are changing, to start thinking about how do I hire and train rather than how do I try and hire the end package? What is my X plus Y? And how do I do that with my workforce? So let's find out what we've got there, look at what vacancies we've got, try and skills map and go, actually, my population of actuarials who are all being automated at the minute make really good data scientists by going through some sort of training program. And therefore, I'm creating and I'm building. And it goes back into something you talked about there. You talked about that sort of how you engage your extended workforce and the purpose of that, so for me, that purpose actually becomes very important, because how you link in your purpose of what your business does and how that employees, how that sort of offer really that you have for your business resonates with people, because by getting that right, you get people to engage, and by having the right data analytics and assessment platform, you can start to understand what your workforce looks like. And then you can start to understand what your future skills requirement is. And then you match the two of those together and you start doing your own trained fit program, which allows you to deliver those just-in-time skills as part of your internal workforce. And ultimately, that should keep you ahead of the competition. So that's really where it came from. But we weren't looking at it at the lens of extended workforce, contingent workers. This was very much for the people who are potentially facing redundancies or large reskilling programs. And it's how can we actually try and identify, if you're going to invest in somebody, who are the people to invest in and who are right for the long term and who have the potential to do it. But ultimately it will identify gaps, and then you go, can I fill those with a variation of a contingent worker, such as the employee consultancy model, which is very popular at the minute, where we're taking people and training them and deploying them and mentoring them through a program and eventually taking them on perm. Or ultimately, where am I just not going to get those skills, and then where do I need to look to engage that workforce? And actually, is that a short-term thing, Johnny? Is that like something that I just need somebody next Q1 to come and deliver a project, therefore that's an outcome and I should push that down a statement of work, versus actually, is this going to be a 2-year transformation and then it's still going to be done? So probably looking at some sort of longer term contractor type engagement model. Who knows?